This is Wednesday, April 29th, meeting of the Berlin Board of Health. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Permit me to confirm all the members that are in attendance. We'll start with the Board of Health members. Bob Wheeler.
Here.
Sue Rivera.
Here.
Paul McKelk here. Bill Brookings.
Present.
Okay. Leanne is our wing person.
Here.
We don't have any specific anticipated speakers other than conversations amongst ourselves relative to proposed changes in Board of Health regulations. Call this meeting to order at, I have 10:03 on April 29th, 2020. The open meeting of the Berlin Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Berlin website at www.townofberlin.com. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor orders suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, provided reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. While no in-person attendance of members of the public is permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. The standard public comment portion of this meeting will accommodate limited public comment. For this meeting, the Berlin Board of Health is convening using the Zoom platform as posted on the agenda, identifying how the public may join. The public is encouraged to follow along during this meeting using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Supporting materials that are available this morning to members can be made available to the public by request. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite each council member to provide each board member, excuse me, by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. A couple last things. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with each other, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself. To the extent that our technical capability allows, public comment will be permitted during the public comment portion of the meeting as follows. Attendees' phones and other devices will be muted unless and until they raise their hand and are recognized to speak. I ask each member of the public who wishes to speak to identify their name, and I will afford each speaker time to ask a question or make a brief comment. This goes on and on. Sorry. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found. Well, I already read that. Sorry, folks. I think we're ready to go.
Paul,
Yes.
this is Leanne. I just
Yeah.
going to let you know that I am going to shut off my camera and my mic, but I am here. I am listening in. I will watch for attendees and keep you updated.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Paul, why can't we record that whole spiel? And every time we have a meeting, we just play the record button.
I don't know why not.
That way you only have to record it one time and you're done.
I wouldn't complain.
Sometimes that takes longer than the meeting, right?
Yeah, really. All right, today's meeting is to review proposed changes to the Berlin Board of Health regulations. Just brief recap. We met with at least 3 local installers, got their input on certain things. We've also reviewed variances that we have granted in the past, kind of out of routine because they have been either outdated or just don't apply in this day and age anymore. I guess I will start with well, first of all, does anybody have any initial statements they want to make relative to what we're going to be going over here?
Paul, I could wait to comment on this, but I might as well bring it up now.
Sure.
When Lancaster revised their regulations and went ahead and changed their distance chart in the septic regs, it took us a while, but we realized we had to change the distance chart in our well regs to match. So I'm bringing that up now to say that once we look at this, we should probably look at our well reg chart and revise it to match accordingly, just so we don't miss that step. Which again, I don't have that information in front of me today, but we can go through our changes and I can certainly take a peek at the well regs and maybe talk about that again.
Okay, that makes sense. 2 sides to this. I guess moving ahead, we'll deal with what I have is K, construction and fill. Excuse me. I don't know if it's necessary for me to read this. Does anybody have any specific or general comments relative to what we're removing and what we're looking to replace it with?
I've read through that replacement statement and it really eliminates that counting edge of clean fill as part of leaching facility, which adds that extra 5 feet onto any distance. So it sounded good to me.
Is that similar to either what Lancaster and or Bolton have now, Bill?
Offset wise, yes. And again, they don't, I don't think even necessarily have a fill section in their regs because again, you're referring to Title 5, 15255, and that pretty much governs systems and fill.
Okay.
But again, this elaborates a little bit about, you know, wetlands and meeting with conservation. So, you know, it's certainly informative, but it does match the offsets, yes.
Any other comments?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Next item is P, use of Title V. This one's short, so I will read it. Remove the following paragraph. Quote, in situations where the 1978 Environmental Code Title V applies, the Berlin regulations in effect prior to March 31st, 1995 must be met. Anything from anybody?
Probably makes sense to remove that because when the code was revised in 1995, I think there was a 3-year window for systems previous to be taken care of. So that time frame is long since gone.
Okay. Morning, Mary. Oh, yeah.
Realized I'm wearing clothes from 2 days ago and haven't done my hair.
You've changed your name also.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can wait for a pause in the action, so you guys go right ahead.
We can pause right now if you need to jump in.
Well, sorry to do this, but I'm writing a letter now that the board approved at Monday night selectmen's meeting to send to Montechusett, all of the state and the federal delegation, DHCD, basically the universe, about Northbrook Village 1 and 2, because did you all get copied on that resident petition?
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, so the selectmen are escalating this to Montechusett, Senators Markey and Warren, the entire, state and federal delegation, DHCD, everybody. And so because they also reference the water at Northbrook Village 1, although it seems to be precipitated by the water main break at Northbrook Village 2, I didn't know if you guys could give any feedback on this letter, or if you want to authorize the chair or Bill to kind of chime in on it, because we're asking them to give a status report back to the town and remain in regular contact with the town, because there's like 25 residents who signed that petition. Originally, this was something that was going around with a smaller loop of department heads. And then I said to Margaret last week, but she didn't see this, it was buried in her email thread. Shouldn't we also be asking people like the Board of Health and Neshoba, who've had some discussion with DEP about the water? At least you've been involved in one that I know of. I didn't know if you guys were involved in two at all.
Yeah, and I think it might be important to include DEP in this discussion because, again, they have jurisdiction over that water supply system. We have continued to get complaints about some sediment issues in the Northbrook 1 water system. And obviously, DEP is involved in dealing with the perchlorate that showed up in I know for 2, I'm not sure about if that's in 1 also. So I think they're looking at treatment options for the perchlorate, and the sediment is still kind of a mystery.
Oh, there she is.
Hello?
Margaret's coming on.
No.
There she is, boss lady.
There she is.
Morning, Margaret.
Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Once
Margaret, this is
again.
for Monday's meeting. I'm still wearing Monday's ensemble.
Oh my gosh. You must stink. I'm glad you're not here.
Oh,
Coming in.
All right.
I was just asking if they wanted to chime in with some feedback about the letter about Northbrook Village, either the 1 or 2 or both.
Mhm.
And Bill's
So
DEP's
as
involved.
far as water quality, I'm sure Bill has already discussed that's DEP. They have a small water system there, and I know Board of Health is aware of this too. It makes it very difficult for us to weigh in on that, except to say that the DEP is on it. So I'll leave that to Bill and Board of Health. As far as the other stuff in the board's letter, I don't know if Board of Health has seen it, but if they want to weigh in on anything else as far as getting people back into. No.
They haven't seen it, Margaret, because I asked you last week, and I'm sure it got buried in a thread, that when I thinned out the list of the locals that you wanted, that I was asking, is this the now defined list of locals you want feedback from? You didn't
Yeah.
answer, but I knew
Yeah.
that they were meeting today, so I wanted to just kind of ask if they have anything they would like to contribute to the letter.
Board of Health?
On 2, on the habitability of 2.
Yeah, so So I don't know if Board of Health, you want to, I would really hesitate though. And I'm not going to weigh in on the water issue at all because I know it's a small water system governed by DEP. So that'll be Bill and Board of Health. They can decide on that. I know the residents, and I know Board of Health knows the residents have been frustrated with that, but I know Board of Health's hands are tied to a large degree with that. So
Well, we do talk to the residents and we listen to their concerns, and I've talked to the state, and I really stress to them to talk to the state because it's the state that should really be pushing for resolving any issues that are out there. It is their system.
That's a really good point. We just put out something for SA Farm. We just put something out on our Facebook page and town website and stuff about the DEP's online complaint reporting system. Maybe we can do the same for water, where residents could bring their complaints right directly to DEP. So
Skip the middleman.
skip the middleman. There you go. So maybe we could do something like that to address that type of thing. I wanted to ask Board of Health, and I know it's probably not on your agenda. You saw the Rockwell apartments issue, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be sure that you saw that. And
What's the latest issue there? I guess I haven't.
so they had to close down, and they're doing another deep cleaning because they had another positive. They had another positive there, so they proactively closed down. So, I guess, Paul, have you been in touch with them?
Not yet. I was impressed that they proactively took it upon themselves to shut down. It seems like, considering where we started with them,
Yeah.
they understand that there's a level of seriousness here that can't be avoided.
Yeah, that's good. At least they're on the right path, huh?
Yes.
It's
Do you
funny,
expect that-
I was planning on getting up early this morning to go to the site, and then I got the email yesterday that they shut down. So I said, no.
So they're planning on reopening tomorrow. Are you planning on going there tomorrow before they reopen to inspect again, or is it just going to be a?
I was just going to do it kind of as a spot check, and I can certainly do it tomorrow because I would like to see, and I also want to talk to their super, Tom Knott, just to get his skinny on things.
Yeah.
I also wanted to actually visit the nurses station. I know where it is, but I have yet to see, not that I've been there enough times to actually encounter, but I want to see how that's working and that there's an actual physical nurse there taking temps.
Yeah, at both entrances, right? There's two entrances, and so
everybody is supposed to go through that nurse's office. And the other time I was there, I know that has not been happening. So that's one of the things that I want to check out with them. And maybe with this recent event, they will be even a little more sensitive to doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You can hope.
So I think you went last time with the fire marshal. We went down, so I'm sure he'd be willing to go with you again tomorrow if that's what you plan. Okay.
Yep.
We have an independent inspector there, or they do, right, Paul, that's independent of them?
Yes, it's a third-party inspector that's liable to the town of Berlin, but being paid for by them. The company has been filing daily reports.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't get really excited about the daily reports as far as I'm concerned, but it does demonstrate that somebody's at least checking a few things. Without walking hand in hand with them, it's hard to tell. I know they're not spending all day on site. You know, they go and they're maybe there presumably for a couple hours checking things. So, I mean, there's a little mystery there that we need to see if we can uncover a little bit.
Yeah. How's everyone holding up otherwise?
Hanging in
Oh,
there.
I see smirks. Come on.
There's Ducky.
Yeah. So back to the letter on Northbrook Village. I guess I would just leave that to Board of Health and Bill as to how to address, or if you want to weigh in on that letter. And
See
we,
it first.
okay,
That's what I'm
so,
saying. So let me send it, but I don't, they're not meeting again for 2 weeks.
so, oh no, it's okay. Just, I mean, send it. And maybe if you just review, give individual comments. I mean, I'd like to get the letter out as soon as possible, just so we can say, you know, we're paying attention to the residents' concerns.
Right.
And as far as the whole DEP online reporting, we've got their link now to the online system, and we might be able to share that with residents as well. So, all right,
Thanks,
I
guys.
have
I'll
to
send it
go.
out.
I have to go to another meeting. I'm very sorry, but everybody stay well. I'll talk to you soon. I hope to see you
Bye.
sometime in real life. I keep saying that now at every meeting. Good night, goodbye.
Real life.
See ya.
All right, back to the regs. 4B, location. And what that one does is, I'll summarize, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong. What it's eliminating is the paragraph relative to establishing a groundwater testing period, and it's being replaced by working with soil strata, and an approved soil evaluator. Still requires the 4 holes, 2 primary, 2 reserve, the depth of 10 feet, and to be dug as outlined in Title V. And the board or agent may require further holes after viewing the lot, depending on what is discovered. Any tweaks, comments, or additions there?
That sounded good to me. Again, it removes that March, April window and allows testing to be done year round based on soil modeling. So that matches the state code.
Matches state. Okay, the next one, depth to maximum groundwater elevation. Remove no leaching facility, parentheses, pit, chamber, trench, galley, or field shall be constructed in areas where the maximum groundwater elevation is less than 5 feet below the bottom of the facility. Excuse me. And replace it with depth to maximum groundwater elevation. No leaching facility, pit, chamber, etc. shall be constructed in areas where the maximum groundwater elevation is less than 4 feet below the bottom of the facility. I would like to talk about this one a little bit because I'd like to understand maybe the science a little bit more, Bill.
Yeah.
I need to understand where you're at.
Well, basically that, I was just going to bring that up. This falls under Roman numeral 5, components C. So we've just jumped a little bit out of order. That's all. It's the last page
Okay.
after the sewer line length.
No, that page did not print out for me, Sue. It's on you. Yeah, all right, my computer.
I don't think I got it either.
Yeah, it is on the last page.
Wait a minute.
But we all have to understand, Paul's computer does some very weird things.
I got
you
4
very
pages
much.
total.
Thank
This will be page 4.
All right, Bill or somebody re-guide me here, because if I'm missing something, that's not gonna be helpful.
Well, the first page we've gone through, that was, location, B, deep test holes. Then
Right,
it says, if you look at the bottom of that page, it says F distances.
yes.
The next two pages I have are the actual table of distances.
Oh, correct, all right.
The one to be removed and the one to be replaced. Then it jumps to Roman numeral 5, components A, shoreline length. And then this last page, C, is depth to groundwater. So all I have on that fourth page is just that 5C section.
All right, my apologies, I scrambled my pages, so we will go to 5, components, sewer line length.
Okay.
Do you want to stay in line with Roman numeral 4, though? Because that would go to 4F, and we'd be addressing the distance tables before we go to Roman numeral
Oh,
5.
correct, I'm sorry, okay, yes, 4F, distances.
So once we take a peek at this, I do have some comments on the new table that I think have to be adjusted to be more in line with Title V, if that's the goal.
All right. Okay, the existing, well, let's go where the changes are.
Yes, if we go to the replace with the following table,
Yes,
that first line, well or suction line, 100 feet to tank and 100 feet to leaching facility. The 100-foot to tank is double the Title V offset. Title V's offset is 50. So I don't know if you want to go 50 on the tank and 100 to the leach facility. That would put you in line with Title V.
okay, let's go through all of them relative to Title V, and then we'll back up
Mm-hmm.
and talk about them. How about the next one, well or suction line where ledge is prevalent?
That's up to the board if you want to keep that. It really just doubles the tank distance to well if it's in an area of ledge. It's a valid concern.
No, I think he's asking what is Title V?
Oh, Title V doesn't change their offset when ledge is prevalent, so it would remain 50. They don't have, just like we have increased offsets in 2-minute soils or increased offsets where ledge is prevalent, Title V's offset should just stand regardless of the site conditions.
So that's the same for tank and leaching facility. Title V would be 50 and 100.
50 and 100, correct.
Okay. 2-minute or less soil.
That if you right now all you're doing is reiterating those same offsets, 50 and 100 with a different perk rate. In theory, you could strike that if that's the goal, because originally, as you can see, in 2-minute soils, we jumped that leaching facility offset to 150 feet. So if we're not going to increase offsets in 2-minute soils, that whole section could just be removed. The way that Title V addresses 2-minute soils is by adding a foot to the vertical groundwater offset. So
Right.
don't increase horizontal offsets in 2-minute soils, but the state code does require a 5-foot offset to groundwater instead of the usual 4. And the theory is there that vertical movement through the soil is providing treatment. Horizontal offsets are really setting up a dilution type factor once it's been treated vertically. So that's how the state addresses the faster soils, is with an increased groundwater offset, not increase horizontal offsets.
So that would stay at 100 then, Bill,
Or just remove that whole section. You don't really need to bring up 2-minute soils if you're not increasing offsets in them. It's just a reiteration of what's already in Title V. So you could
Okay.
strike that whole section.
all right.
If that's the goal. If you're going to match Title V with your offsets, you could just remove that section.
Paul?
Jim, yeah.
Making a note, Sue. All right. Dwelling with cellar, including foundation drains.
Now, in this case, I think we got a typo. 10 foot is the Title V minimum, so you're reiterating what the state code says. Leach facility has to be at least 20. That's the minimum in Title V. So that 10 should be a 20 if you're going to
All
remain,
right.
if you're going to keep that offset. Yep, but that again, that's in line with Title V.
Which paper we working on here?
This would be page 3, the replacement table.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Next one is property line. Looks like,
Yeah, again, Title V is 10 feet to either. You know, the board has increased this to 20 or 25, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. But again, that, you know, Title V says 10 to either.
surface water supplies or tributaries.
This is that drain offset that we've constantly discussed, and I didn't know if the board was looking to reduce those offsets or not. I forget, I don't have my notes from when we had discussed that, but I thought we had talked about possibly cutting those down. But this currently matches the current regulations. And again, Title V's offset to drains are dramatically less.
Yeah, I seem to remember that we did talk about reducing those distances.
I think so, yeah.
I don't remember the numbers, but I know we were cutting them.
Yeah, I'd have to research that. I think I stuck a copy of my notes in the Board of Health desk in the office, so I could take a peek at that next time I'm in.
Okay, all right.
What does Title V say, Bill? Anything specific?
It goes through a list of type of drain, not to say worst case, but the drain with the biggest offset would be one that intercepts seasonal high groundwater, and that's 50 feet. And then you go down to, I'd have to get the code, but foundation drains are probably like 10. And then any other type of surface drain is like 5 on the tank and 10 on the system. So they're much, much less.
Okay,
But I can double check that, and I can see what we had discussed. Like I say, I think I have my minutes at the desk at the office.
Just segue, do you think that's something you would be able to double check on before or by our next meeting, which is the May 5th?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was going to do the well rigs by the 5th, but as far as the drain offsets go, I'll probably be in tomorrow morning bright and early, so I can take a look at it then.
Okay, because I'd like to think that on the 5th, we can really finalize what we're going to be promoting for changes here.
Yep.
And then get in touch with the different installers and get their feedback and then proceed with a hearing.
Yep.
Water courses, streams, ponds, swamps, and other wetlands.
Here, I think we might want to add a word in the definition. And again, I think we had talked about going to 50 on the tank versus 100. Again, it's up to the board.
What's Title V?
25 to tank and 50 to leach facility. So 50 and 100 would be double the state code.
Okay. And the same thing in 2-minute soil or less.
Well, actually, if we could just jump up to that one again, it says water courses, streams, ponds, swamps, and other wetlands. I think the word surface waters should be added to that definition. So maybe we could say water courses, streams, ponds, swamps, other wetlands, and surface waters, because surface waters does show up as a definition in the code. So it might be wise to have that. I know we've run into some problems about definitions in Title V versus definitions in the local regs. So we might want to add surface waters to that column.
Would a seep qualify as surface water?
It may. Again, we might have to turn to the Wetlands Protection Act to see how they define a seep, but I think it does, but I don't know that it's specifically defined in Title V, but I think it might be
Okay.
in Wetlands Protection Act. Yep.
Okay. So dropping back down to the 2-minute soil.
Yep. So again, right now you're reiterating the Title V offset in any perk rate. So in theory, that could be eliminated if you're not increasing your offset in 2-minute perks.
All right. Joining walls of the primary and reserve area.
Yeah, the state code really doesn't address that, but 10's not a bad idea.
And that's 10 feet just from the leach facility.
But right, between your primary and your reserve. So the active system and the future reserve, 10 feet. Yep.
Okay. And horizontal offset to ledge. I think we pretty much agreed earlier to drop that to 10 feet when it comes relative to the leach facility.
Well, actually, I think those numbers are reversed. I think we intend, usually your tank offset is less than your leach area offset.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it would be 10 to tank, and then we could throw 25 for the leach area. Yep.
Yeah, because Title V is 10 and 10, correct?
Actually, again, they do not have an offset to ledge. Believe it or not, you could be, in theory, right to the edge of a surface of ledge with a system. So they don't. They just say that it has to be adequate depth of soil beneath the system, but they don't go beyond that area.
Because the old reg was 10 and 10.
Was it? No, actually, it was 25 and 25.
25 and
All
25.
right.
Yeah, I think 25. So what are we going with? What are we thinking of?
Well, I think we were talking 10 to tank, 25 to leach area.
Yes.
I think they've just been reversed in the table, that's all.
Yep.
Okay, now that we've been able to, well, at least myself, follow these tables and put down some Title V information, starting with well and or suction line, what are the feelings about reducing 100 feet to 50 in accordance with Title V, the septic tank? Anybody see any real issues there?
I don't, but I'm easy.
I don't see any problem with it with the new piping we have, Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
In theory, the tank is a
yeah.
watertight structure, so there shouldn't be anything
Right.
really
They're
leaking out of it.
sealed.
If a seam's leaking, again, things tend to migrate vertically versus horizontally, so that horizontal offset seems adequate.
How about the leaching facility?
That's a 100-foot minimum state code, so
Okay.
reiterating that. Yep.
What about where ledge is prevalent? Same thing. It's pretty much the same as the one above. When we went through this a few minutes ago, Title V is 50 feet, and currently we have 100 on the septic tank. So I don't have a problem with that either. It seems to be consistent with whether there's ledge or not.
So would you propose changing that or keeping it at 100?
I'm okay with changing it to the 50. the Title
Because
V.
again, that would be a similar situation with the 2-minute perk where you would pretty much strike it because if you're not changing your horizontal offset in that condition, you don't even need to list it.
Right, right.
I'm okay with that.
Me too.
All right. I think the next one then would be, well, well or suction line where there's 2-minute soil. I believe, Bill, that you said that fundamentally that's something if we remove, it would just match Title V, correct?
Correct.
I'm all right with that one.
Okay.
Sue?
I'm good. I'm just making notes here.
Okay. I didn't know if you were watching the birds there for a minute.
I don't see any birds. I hear them, but I don't see them.
All right, dwelling with cellar, including foundation drains. Tank, Title V is 10 feet and leach is 20, correct? Title V?
Right. Yep.
I would say those numbers are good.
Would you say 10 and 25 or 20?
20, sorry. The
Okay.
next one, property line, Title V has 10 feet for both. We're at 20 for the tank and 25 for the leach. I am personally inclined to leave the numbers where we have them at 20 and 25. Any good arguments to reduce them to 10?
We haven't had many variances on that, have we, Bill?
No, and the reason is most of your systems end up being in fill. And to have a fill system, you usually need more than 10 feet to the property line to make your breakout. You know, that's where you come out level and then down at a 3-to-1 slope. So the way systems are designed nowadays, that 10 foot's an unusual situation with a system in the ground without any breakout fill. So, you know, that offset kind of matches the way systems are going in. So it gives you a little more room to work too if you're near somebody's property line. So not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think we ever see that as a request on new construction, probably just on upgrades.
Okay, well, we should leave it then.
That would be my vote on that.
Yeah.
I don't, I know Berlin, everybody's got 80, well, not everybody, but when it comes to redos and all that, I don't want to, if you go up to Carterville, I don't want to crowd neighbors' fields and things like that. It's one thing if you're building on, I don't know, Derby or something, but this is a little different. Bill, you were going to check on the surface water supplies and tributaries, the next
Yeah.
one?
The last time you were in the office, I think we may have talked about possibly even removing the surface water supplies and tributaries to reservoirs and just letting it fall back to Title V, because Title V has a graduated, within their table, they graduate the offsets depending on the type of surface water supply, type of tributary. So there's already a built-in graduated offset within their table. And as far as the open and subsurface drain offset goes, I'll have to take a look at my notes and see what we talked about changing that too. And I'll also look at what Title V, again, they have kind of a graduated table depending on the type of drain. So I can get in touch with Paul, Sue, Bob, once I get that info and, decide what we want to put there as a proposed for the draft copy of the regs.
Okay,
Okay.
The next one, water courses, streams, ponds, swamps, and other wetlands and surface water, which we'll add as verbiage. Title V is 25 and 50. Our current regs are 100 and 100. I could see a lot of pushback from Concom on this. Not a reason for us not to change, but I think we need to give it a more than a cursory look. We had talked about possibly reducing the distance to tank to 50 feet as tanks are sealed and so forth. And leaving it at 100 from the leach field. And
What's,
go ahead.
but what's Title V, Billy? Just for the,
25 feet for tank and 50 to leach field. So this, if you want 50 and 100, you'd be doubling the Title V offset.
okay.
And I personally am good with the 50 and 100. I wouldn't want to reduce either one any more than that.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it. At least we've made a change.
Yep.
And
Well, we've made a change that
For the tank,
I think is reasonable with the technology that's available, i.e. better quality tanks that are sealed and so forth. And it might help us allow to clean up older systems as they come up. The next one, which is pretty much the same, but it deals with 2-minute soils. I believe our conversation was that that could be eliminated.
that's correct.
Correct.
I'm good with that. Joining walls to the primary and reserve area, 10 feet, and it remains the same. Horizontal offset to ledge. We're proposing to reduce the 25 feet to 10 and leaving the distance to the leach field at 25. And that's a change that I think it's not a deal breaker, but I think it's worthwhile.
Now, can I ask a real stupid question, even though I know this is being recorded? When they say ledge, do they have to dig down to find the ledge? Or
Well,
do
in theory, we would have, not always, but usually the test holes are done in the area of the leach facility. The house and tank sometimes near the leach facility, sometimes not. But, ledge can be prevalent at ground surface or by test hole.
because, on my property, everywhere you look, you see signs of ledge sticking up.
That would be ledge is prevalent.
I think they must have had an outhouse at my house to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they got a septic in. Okay, I was just curious.
Mhm. All right, anything else on that table before we
No.
move on? Okay, components, sewer line length. Eliminating the 100 feet that we currently have and putting in a 400-foot length, which can still be varied, but it eliminates a lot of 100-foot, 105-foot variances that we've granted, 120 feet. I don't see any harm in that. That's just doing some house cleaning, I think.
Yep.
I agree. We've had so many of those, and with today's new pump systems and all that, I think it's time.
Yeah, yep. All right. And depth to maximum groundwater elevation. I guess we've been considering going from 5 feet from the bottom of the facility to 4 feet. And this is one where I guess I would say I'm a little conflicted. I'm not sure. To me, it sounds like that's, excuse me, potential negative change in terms of septic in town and environmental well-being. But I say that without really understanding the science that might be behind it. You could help explain or elaborate a little bit, Bill?
Well, the understood science is that 2 feet is adequate for proper treatment.
2
Sometimes
feet?
you'll see upgrades using a Presby, for example, going down to 2 feet. The state on conventional systems that are upgrades allow a 1 foot reduction in groundwater offset. So going from a 4 to a 3. And again, feeling that it still provides adequate treatment. So, if the science says 2, 4 is twice that, which I think allows for a buffer in case, the groundwater call isn't exact. But again, that's what the science is too. And the state's always held the 4, so I think that's just kind of etched in stone for now, except for the use of Presbys or failed systems being upgraded.
2 minute or less soil, Bill, is 5 by Title 5.
Yeah, exactly. So we may want to add another sentence there again, just so that we're at least in line with what Title 5 says. Yep.
So how would we word that?
Well, just reading it, you could put comma 5 feet in 2 minute per inch soils. I mean, it could be that simple.
Okay,
But it would be 4 in regular or, high.
Anything faster than a 2 minute per inch perk would be a 4 foot offset. Yep.
Okay.
And again,
Slower.
that coincides with Title 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see.
and the whole premises of that is that shit goes downhill.
Correct. It's being
Never goes up. It goes down.
well, it goes up when the system's failed, and that's not a good thing. That's when we're not going to do it. So the vertical travel through unsaturated soil is really where the majority of treatment is occurring. Once the effluent goes through the the leaching area and the biomat associated with it, then you've got that unsaturated soil beneath the system to kind of take that final treatment step before it enters the groundwater.
So basically 4 feet is double what the state considers science and what
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say the state considers, but any research, any science, when it's discussed, there are other states with a 2 foot offset, not Mass, but that seems to be the understanding on the science end of it is 2.
So 4 is somewhat doubling it.
It's double, and again, it allows that extra buffer, especially in towns, where there's no town water available. You're truly reliant on your groundwater for a water supply.
Right.
So,
Right.
but again, Title V doesn't differentiate if it's town water or wells.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they've always held the 4.
Okay.
Well, how do you feel about this? Because we don't want you conflicted.
I am, after this conversation and what Bill has shared, I'm less conflicted, and maybe I was falling victim to the little voices in the back of my head in terms of dealing with Concom. Because I know some of these changes, it could be an interesting hearing, especially if we do it on Zoom. It's going to be, I think it's going to be problematic, but it will be whatever it is. No, I'm okay with changing that to 4 feet and adding, make it 5 feet in 2 minute soil. It seems to me to be a reasonable compromise.
Something else to consider is the more exactness at which we determine the seasonal high groundwater based on modeling. Again, I think there was a buffer worked into the offset so that if you were out in the spring and you weren't witnessing a true high during that period, that there was that additional buffer for the, a lot of the towns have the 5 foot, I think, for that reason. But now that we're using you're really determining that groundwater table within inches so that you're truly probably assuring at least a 4-foot offset. So I think that's another important change in the code that would make that change make sense.
What you're saying is what helps make it make sense is that we now do the soil strata rather than the deep hole water test. Okay.
Right, because in theory, to say, gee, I went out and did a deep hole in March, and that one day happens to be the highest the groundwater is going to reach on that lot, not realistic. But now we can go out year round, look at the soil color, and really put a depth on that seasonal high water table. So when applying an offset to it, it's much more exact.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Well, I'll type up these changes and get the documents back to everybody.
Yeah, Sue, why don't you give me a day or so to take a look at the discussion we had on the drain offset and maybe talk about what Title V says, and we can fill in those blanks and maybe look quickly at the well regulation table to make sure it matches the changes we're proposing here.
Okay.
Anything else on these regs that we've missed or had second thoughts on, or I certainly think this was helpful and we're getting closer to our goal.
And we're getting practice on Zoom.
And we're getting practice on Zoom.
You're doing great.
So important.
Paul, I still show Mike Sawyer as being in attendance. I don't know if you want me to see if he's there, unmute him, or?
No, because I actually spoke with Mike this morning, and I think what he did was set it up, or had Janet set it up so that he could, but I told him that there was really no need for him because I figured he had
Okay,
100 places to be,
right, okay,
and that we would be in touch with him with our updated changes, both personally and in writing. So,
okay,
and he was fine with that. I mean, we're not going to go ahead with this until we've talked to the, certainly at least the original group of installers that we had into the Board of Health. I mean, we're not in the business of blindsiding or anything like that. This has to be a joined, kind of a joined agreement. Because we want to be reasonable and we want to keep everybody in business and reasonably happy with what our regs are without jeopardizing the town.
Yeah, this was more just to get us feeling really comfortable and sure of what we've put together.
Right. Because if I don't look at this for 2 weeks, I start to get uncomfortable again. It's my memory fades.
Billy,
Bobby,
did we
you
miss
call-
anything?
Bobby, did you call anybody other than Mike?
I just talked to Paul Wheeler person. That was it. But I don't think they wanted to, they were just thinking of, I was trying to get any ideas they may have, but they pretty much went along with what we were thinking.
Right, right. And we need to be careful if we're contacting those guys that if we contact one, we contact them all. Because otherwise it just doesn't play well. It's like Mark Rhodes said, well, I didn't know about it. So, moving forward, we have to do everything jointly. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I figured it's a public hearing. It's been up on the board there. We have
Right.
for a while.
Yep. But I mean, if you're making a call, that's almost like a personal invitation. I guess that's my point. It's
Oh,
on.
well,
You let
I
it
see them
go.
all the time, so I was just mentioning.
Yeah, no biggie, no biggie. All right.
Bill?
Do I have something to say to close the meeting here?
Bobby, got a question?
No, I just didn't know if we forgot anything, Bill, that you might have.
No, that's everything we discussed. We just got to take a look at that drain offset, what we were talking about changing that to.
Paul, I
Okay,
do think you
just
have to,
I'm sorry.
I think you have to adjourn by roll call vote, just so
Okay.
you know.
And just to be clear, we haven't made any decisions today. This was more about getting a little bit more specific in what we're looking at for rule changes. We're going to review it again. Bill's going to add a couple things. And then we'll take the next appropriate step after that. Hearing nothing else, as chair, I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second it. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Bobby Wheeler?